Welcome back to the Zero Weakness Podcast, where we talk about how to be a better lifter, how to be a better coach, and everything in between. Make sure you subscribe and enjoy. All right, well, we're back with another episode of the ZeroW Podcast, and I'm here in this amazing facility with a very special guest, Dr. Eugene. Can I call you Dr. Eugene?
Definitely can't. You absolutely can't. You're going to get people hating on me already.
Eugene, I've never actually heard you say your surname. So can you say your surname so everyone can say it right? Because half the people say Teo and half the people say Teo.
I would rather you say it and hope that you get it correct.
Oh, see, I would say Eugene Teo.
Yeah, it's incorrect.
Teo.
Yes, Teo.
Fuck. Well,
50-50 chance and you fucked it up.
Tried my best. Anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And this podcast is all about you, so I'm just basically going to sit here and ask a bunch of questions that I want to ask, and people can listen to it.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Yeah, well, we were just talking, and I want to continue that conversation. We were talking about your app a little bit earlier, and we're talking about the kind of numbers that you had. And I said, where do you think you stand? And you were just about to say, well, it's all about retention. So can you continue saying what you were about to say?
Yeah. I mean, this is like any subscription model, whether it's in-person gyms like you have or whatever. You can get a lot of customers in and it can look really good. But then if it's a really poor level of service or whatever, it doesn't really matter on the numbers. You can get 20,000 people in. Cool. And they might pay you $10 each. It's $200,000 right then and there for the month. But then if they don't retain much long, where's the livelihood, where's the lifespan of that business really going? So in terms of my actual numbers, I don't think I'm very much up there when you look at my overall following of people. It's like, hey, we have, say, about roughly 12,000 people on there right now. But if you think about doing the numbers on much larger creators, say someone who's got 5 million followers versus me having 500,000 followers, if you do the basic, if you scale it back to saying, let's say a 5% conversion on followers, which is honestly, that's quite overload for most people. Yeah. Most people have like 1 million followers. They aren't getting 5% of that as customers. But let's just use that as a rough example. I'm small fish, 10 to 20,000 people is small players. It's not that substantial. But if I was to look at it from saying the retention on those people, it's very good. The satisfaction with those people, it's great, and it continues to improve, which I'm really, really pleased with. And when it comes to the acquisition as opposed to retention, like bringing people in, I'd say that's actually a much easier way to do things. That's the easy part of the equation. Keeping people around in your business. If you've got a good product, you've got a good service, whether it's in person or online, doesn't matter what it is. If it's a good product, which you should hope it is, then people should want to stick around. They should want to tell their friends. They should want to just not cancel. They should want to, if their payments elapse and they get overdue, they should want to call you up and be like, hey, my payment's going to bounce. Can you please fix it so I can keep paying you and giving you money? That's what you want, And that's, where I feel like we have been working towards and we've been at, which is great. But yeah, the acquisition size is where, honestly, I've been suffering because I haven't been driving enough time into that. I haven't been putting enough attention because I had other priorities. And that's something where now we're going through just a big sea change in terms of the actual business side of things. I've been sort of hitting the pause button on a lot of the outreach marketing, putting out content, engaging and driving traffic in, because there's a couple of things on the business side where I need to just get things up to scratch to make sure the product continues to be that exceptional value. People stick around, want to stay around, tell their friends, and just make it a really long-term thing. So yeah, I think to answer your very simple question, a very long way, but simplified back, your question was, you must be quite up there with your numbers in the industry. I don't think I am. Maybe in Australia, I don't really know of many people who have larger scale fitness apps within Australia. I think I'm sure there'd be some big companies as opposed to an individual or an individual brand that I might not know of, and definitely in different niches. Like we think of something like Weight Watchers, they're probably millions. But I think probably in terms of Australia, probably big, but then look at the States, look overseas, it's small fish. I'm small fish. Yep.
So, I mean, but it's really important for people to hear that, like you talking about the whole idea of the lifetime value of the client, not just seeing them as a number that comes in and then chasing numbers, but how can you maintain that retention so that there is a higher lifetime value of each client. And that requires a lot of nurturing, that requires putting a lot back, giving them a lot of value. And what would you say has been some of the key things that you've done to create that value? Because I know you spend a lot of time talking to your people within the app. You know, you'll post a lot of stuff online showing the kind of stuff that you're giving back, and you'll give a lot back just organically to your followers. Would you say that's it, is just spending more time giving back to them within the app?
Yeah, even that, like, depending on the kind of service that you offer, I actively get in there and I interact with people. Is it absolutely essential that I do that? Honestly, kind of not. I do it because I enjoy that, and you know, I'd get bored if I did nothing else. But there are plenty of exact replicas, businesses of like fitness apps or whatever, that have absolutely no interaction. You know, like one of the most popular fitness apps out there is Couch to 5K. It's a very simple app where you just go in there, it gives you every single day what your running program is meant to be to get you from absolute zero to being able to run 5K. It's great. There's no back and forth, no member interaction, nothing. But it's such a good experience, people stick around and people want to tell their friends, and it's, you know, got millions of people who use it and talk about it and rave about it. So there's going to be many different methods that you can use to create that experience, whether it's you being a hands-on person or it's the product itself being so exceptional. Maybe it's about having different brand ambassadors or different cool bells and whistles within the app as well that bring people in. There's no right or wrong there. Where I think one of the areas that we do really flourishing is obviously having me in there, because I just, you know, it's a very unique point of difference from the other fitness apps or the other people out there, where if you really break it down, a lot of fitness apps, they're all the same thing. You know, like there are some things within the tech side and the AI side where we are really pushing things quite differently, or maybe not different, but just better than others. Or just in the overall user experience where it's a little bit better in my opinion, very biased of course. But at the end of the day, most fitness apps are going to do roughly the same thing. They're going to give you a way to put your workouts in, track your progress, get some kind of maybe new program or write your own program, and maybe have some kind of feedback or educational side to it. That's kind of what most apps and most coaching services even are. So as long as you don't screw that up by missing really big things or having something that crashes all the time and explodes and everyone tries to do something, then that should do well on its own. But I think that's where a lot of people actually fall short on simple stuff, is they're trying to reinvent something without getting those really fundamentals right on making sure, is your product actually really, really good? Like one thing we spent, unfortunately, a lot of wasted time a couple of years back on was advertising, like paid advertising, which I've never done. I've always just been an organic growth person where I just put out stuff. But, you know, my business partner Tom was just like, hey, like we should look in Facebook ads. And I said, sure, why not? Let's just, you know, throw some money at that, see what happens with it. But at that point in time, it wasn't about trying to bring people in. It was actually, we should have been focusing more on the actual experience for the customer. There's no point bringing people in if the actual experience is poor and they're going to be leaving. It's like, well, it's a waste of time, waste of money. I think people focus on that. They're focusing on content creation, or they're focusing on outreach. They're focusing on trying to go viral on TikTok, or trying to like look a certain way to bring more people in. It's like, well, is your actual service or product offering really good to the point where somebody comes into it and if they have to leave, they feel so bad and they want to do whatever they can to fight tooth and nail to stay and to find their way back in? If it's not at that point, then you got to focus on that before anything else. But you know, the industry kind of pushes the other idea of run ads, pay this, you know, do these style reels on Instagram and TikTok to make sure you get people in, and do the call to action button here. And I think it's kind of backwards. Like you do need that eventually, or at the same time, but don't forget the actual offering.
Yeah, no, I talk about a lot with people about this whole idea of like putting yourself into a category of one. Like, are you an iPhone or a Samsung guy?
iPhone.
Okay, so if your iPhone breaks today, you know, you drive over it in your car, go to the phone shop, I'm selling you a phone. What's it going to take me to get you to buy a Samsung?
I've just honestly just got to play with it and be shown it. Like I've used only iPhones. As much as you think I'm loyal to it, I'm not loyal to it. The thing that's got me stuck in iPhone, which honestly is a big lesson to a lot of people from a business model, is now I'm kind of stuck with it because of how everything is meshed into the cloud. Yes. Everything is meshed into like all of my devices are synced up.
So it would have to be phenomenal for me to get you to come over to Samsung, because it would have to satisfy your ability to be able to take all of that stuff that you're stuck into and immediately transfer it over, which doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So like this is what I mean. It's a category of one. It's like you make your product so good and so specific to that person that, like you said, they're fighting tooth and nail to stay. And it's so important for up and comers who listen to this kind of podcast to hear that from someone like you, is that just build a fucking awesome product. Like people ask me with Zero's gone from 1 gym to almost 7 gyms. We're in the process of opening the next 2 at the moment in the last 3 years through COVID and everything. And they think it's because of some incredible business acumen or some like crazy investors or something like that. It's no, I've spent 10 years building amazing product. And I like will fall on my sword. And that product is coaching. It's my understanding of what I believe the gold standard squat, bench, deadlift is. That's all it is. And just focusing on that 100%, delivering that to the clients, being passionate about that. That's what's built it over time.
For sure.
So it's so important for people to hear that from people like you. It's not as crazy difficult as it seems. It's very simple. Do the simple things really well.
Simple on paper, then application can be hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing actually I wanted to ask you. You know, I'm gonna flip it around a bit. Are your gyms? Is it private only? Like you got to be have coaching of some sort? It's public so I can get a membership and go there.
Yes,
but it's mainly powerlifting focused, isn't it?
I mean, they are purpose built for powerlifters.
Yeah.
But so my whole vision with Zero is commercializing strength training. Yeah. So like think of the traditional powerlifting gym, kind of dirty, kind of dingy powerlifting equipment, but the model's not very good. No one's making much money. You're buying secondhand equipment here and there. Nothing's matched. Mine is like really schmick, air conditioned, clean, new equipment, lots of machines. Just trying to, meet all the fantastic things about commercial gyms, which powerlifters are historically like, oh, fuck commercial gyms. Right. It's like, no, commercial gyms are awesome. How can we take the awesomeness of that, forget all the stuff we don't like, take the awesomeness of powerlifting, get rid of all the grungy, dirty stuff, put them together. That's what I'm doing with Zero. Right.
I thought, because this is what I've been curious about is, and this might sound really, really wrong of me to say this, but so please don't flame me and roast me for saying this, but powerlifting is really boring.
Not that appealing.
As a sport. It's not appealing. It's not interesting. And it's a really hard sell to the layperson.
Absolutely.
Like, I love it. I think it's cool. I want, even though like I don't do a lot of squat benches to that level anymore, or even ever at that level, but taking it to that seriousness, I still think it's incredible and I can respect it. And I love the ideas of it and I can see how it works and why people get buy-in for it. But for the layperson, it's not interesting. It's not appealing. There's a lot of technique involved. There's a lot of it just doesn't look attractive. Versus say even the Olympic lifts where it looks attractive when you do it. It doesn't, because you're just there with the empty bar, with the heavy barbell, you throw it overhead. No racks, no nothing, there's no walker, you just pull it up. And it's beautiful to watch. It's and you could say like deadlift or a squat can be very technical. It is very technical. It's incredibly technical. But I think just having like a squat rack makes it look a little bit less pretty.
Yeah,
the average person.
No, I mean Olympic lifting's so cool. Like just like you said, you and the bar. That's it.
For sure.
There's a squat rack, fucking 12 spotters around you, 20 refs too close to the platform. Like
for sure. And it kind of ruins the experience. I'm like, how on earth can you make powerlifting
cool?
Cool. How can you make it cool? How can you make it mass appealing? And the reason I was thinking about this was last week I had this pro wrestler in Brian Cage.
Yeah, I saw that. That was sick.
Really cool. And again, I have got no background whatsoever in wrestling or any of this kind of stuff. It's a whole new world to me. So I could be completely butchering everything, but I think, I might be remembering wrong, but I think what he was telling to me was like, we all know pro wrestling is fake. The reason why...
Hang on. What? my childhood is ruined.
Spoiler alert.
Next you're going to say Arnold was on gear.
But apparently the big reason why it became fake was because they realized, you know what? In actual physical pro wrestling as a sport, it's not interesting. Nobody cares. It's not fun. It's not exciting. It's not getting bums on seats. So like, hey, how do we make it a more commercialized? How do we make it more interesting? How do we make it more of a show where it's mass appeal? That's where it became a show, like a reality show at this point, or it's entertainment with really cool showmanship. I was like, does powerlifting have to go down that kind of route where there's big personalities and there's big backstories to it, and the lifting is kind of secondary, but it's still impressive lifting.
Yeah.
Like the wrestlers, even though it's fake, I can't do that. It's very well rehearsed stuff and very well performed machines on there with what they're doing. It's still impressive feats.
It's funny, like if you think about it, real wrestling versus like the choreographed nature. The choreographed nature would take a shitload more skill. Because
I agree.
You can't make it up as you go along. You have to rehearse this entire dance.
So this is what was new to me. Brian was saying most, like 9 times out of 10, they make it up 10 minutes before they go on stage.
No way. I always figured the whole thing was like very little improvisation.
No, they're doing it, even improvising on the spot. The ref will say, hey, you got 3 minutes till we go home. Because it's all on TV.
Yeah.
So they've got to make sure it falls on the tee, but they don't get to plan it sometimes. Sometimes they do. For like the big show, like a John Cena or The Rock, they're planning that, choreographing that for more of a safety and for hitting into certain budget times. But apparently for like a lot of the shows that go on, it's not improvised. Or it is improvised, sorry, where they just show up and maybe an hour before saying, hey, so I want to do this move on you. I've got to win today, so we're going to do this, and we'll do this for 10 minutes and 5 minutes here. At the 3-minute mark, we'll jump into that. But they just got to hope that they know what each other's talking about. And then live on the mat, they might need to change it up, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, wild. Now, coming back to like the language is super important. That's why I didn't say I want to commercialize powerlifting. I want to commercialize strength training. And then once people are in that environment, they're exposed to powerlifting. And if we encourage them down that path, you know, that puts them down that path. Otherwise, a lot of people that come to our gyms just like being near it. They don't necessarily, you know, take the bait and end up being full-blown powerlifters.
That's fair enough.
And yeah, I like it's when people think of powerlifting gyms, they think, okay, well, these people are catering towards powerlifters. That's the worst business model ever because powerlifters are already powerlifting. Like you want to attract new people to it. And you think, okay, where are these people that are going to do powerlifting? They're not noobs. They're not brand new to the gym. They're people invested in strength training in a commercial gym that don't know how to get any better. That's when they go out and seek a powerlifting coach. So if I can just put those people in my gym, my target market is right in front of me.
Right.
I don't have to reach out to them and find them.
Yeah.
They come to me. And so that's been a huge success. The other huge success is like if you think of how fitness brands grow, they kind of go off in a few branches. Like yourself, for example, you'd fall under, and correct me if I'm wrong, like a personal brand. You know, it's built off your personal success and you've managed to find a way to scale that massively. Most people either don't know how to do that, can't do that, whatever. A big part of, from the outside looking in, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not like you happened overnight and got viral. It's like you've been grinding for a very long time. And you've been going around the world and you've been working fucking hard. It's not an overnight success story, right? The other thing, and this is where powerlifting coaches or just PTs in general tend to fall apart. It's like they fill up their books. They're like, what's the logical next step? I either get another coach on board or open a gym, sure, fill up those books, get another coach on board. When they get to the point of, okay, I need more people on board, they try and go out and find coaches. They find coaches with different philosophies. The coach gets hired. They're like, oh, I don't like what they're doing. Fire them, get a new one, just churn through them. Because it's very hard to take your coaching out of you and put it in someone else. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about Zero's built on this product. I've turned that into a coach development system that I now sell as like education.
Right.
But it's been born of like, oh, I can teach another person how to coach, and then I can hire them, and then I have a mini-me, and then another mini-me, another mini-me. And so Zero sells the same product no matter what Zero you go to. And most coaches, personal trainers, whatever, they bring on coaches and the product is inconsistent, and that just kills the ability to scale. So most powerlifting brands that try to build people, bring people on and then build to the next level just run into that hurdle.
Right.
And so that when I think of, or when I talk to these, you know, smaller gyms that have seen what Zero's done, it's like you have to systemize everything you do. You have to become McDonald's. And when you go to McDonald's, you buy a hamburger, it's a hamburger no matter where you go. It's a Big Mac no matter where you go. You want that with your coaching. You want the squat to be taught the same no matter where you go. You want the programming systems to be the same no matter where you go. Anyway, I feel like we're talking more about Zero now. We need to go back to
that
this.
was really my goal.
Yeah. I want to know how it all started out for you. Like, how did you get involved in training and fitness in the first place? Like, take us way back.
Wow. Okay. I was just a really small Asian kid and I just needed to put on muscle. That was it. I was playing sport and I was just a small person. So I just started going to the gym when I was like 15 or so and started to live, or 14, and started lifting properly then, or as properly as you can as a 14-year-old. And that was it. I just really enjoyed it. I was good at it because I'm not good at any physical sport. Horrible at running, horrible at anything, hand-eye coordination, tennis, whatever. I'm just suck at it. But the gym, I was like, oh, this is something I can do and I can actually excel at. And then what I also liked about it was it wasn't necessarily a competitive thing in a sporting sense, because I was just never into that. And then when it came to, like, say, bodybuilding, I liked that because I realized I actually got a really good structure for bodybuilding specifically. And also even just like putting on muscle or just being strong, I've got pretty good leverages overall to be able to get into nice positions and move well. And that was just where you get that affirmation, so you keep doing more and more of it. That was it. Just like, some kids, they're blessed to play basketball. They start playing basketball, they get affirmations and rewards for it, so they keep doing it, they get really, really good at it because they just fell into it. I kind of fell into training, and that was it. I was like, this is what I do now. And it's just been non-stop on that. And then now it's very much not bodybuilding. It's a lot of, now I'm actually getting more into things like running, sort of mix it up a little bit and just see what entices me more, because I just, I find some things get boring over time. You want to keep yourself stimulated, which is what I find impressive about people like yourself who've done the same kind of thing or the same style for so long. Like, wow, I know that I can't do that. I can't pay attention to something and for that long all the way through, I'll get fidgety and be like, I want to do a handstand now.
Yeah. So you started when you're 15. How old are you now?
32, 31, 32.
Something like that.
Yeah, 32 this year. Yeah, 32 this year.
Okay. And how did, playing around with the gym, doing a bit of strength stuff, doing some bodybuilding stuff, turn into coaching people? Or did you become a PT?
Yeah.
So was that the trajectory?
Yeah, so I was training in the gym through high school. Second I left high school, I just joined the local fitness first, and I was just training there. And then I was like, okay, I think I'd like to work here. So I said, how do I get a job here? Like, you got to get your Cert 3, Cert 4. Did that, and then just started working there as a PT and did that for many years. Moved through a couple of different commercial gyms, just as you do. And that just kept growing. That was it, just what I was doing. Again, I guess to come back to the first part of the conversation around like the exceptional product and service, looking back on it now, it wasn't exceptional. It wasn't world class. I don't think it would be anything that I would compare to maybe what you guys do at Zero. But back then it was enough, and it was above what other people were doing for whatever reason. Because that, it just grew. I had clients who would do whatever they could to continue seeing me. They would travel to see me. I had people traveling a couple of hours to come see me each week. People relocating so they could train with me. I was like, okay, this is obviously, I'm doing something right, and I can't keep up with the demand. What can I do to make this more scalable? And it wasn't online coaching. It was actually just, okay, I don't want to see you every single day anymore. Even though you're going to pay me to do that, I'd rather see you once a month. And I'd rather you take care of yourself and we just check in on a more casual basis. We'll still do a session for a proper refresher. And that then allowed me to take on more people. And then the stuff I was talking about through social media, people were interested in that. So I started teaching that stuff a little bit more and just talking about whatever I learned and what was working for me. Just pretty much whatever I've always done, whenever I've been learning for myself or in business or whatever, I'll just share it. Because that's what I do on social media. So social media is made for, to share your ideas and what you're going through. And people connected with that, so it just kept growing, to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to give a workshop now. I'm going to, just to be able to let people come and hear this same talk that I'm giving to individual people in consults. I'll give it to everybody at once. I'll do it now overseas. I'll do it everywhere overseas. And I'll just keep doing that. I can't keep up with everybody doing it overseas. I will do it now on a website where it can be delivered to anybody who can't come to my events because they sell out. And then it was like, okay, I'll make that into an app so it's a better user experience. Now people just don't want to learn about it. They want the actual nuts and bolts of the implementation. It's cool to learn about programming, but sometimes you just want to be lazy and you be told what to do. So I'll give you that now. And that's where we are now. It was just through every time I was just trying to provide whatever I could and try to keep up with what people wanted. And I was like, okay, this is what I'll go to next. And it's, where we're at. Like, I never started from day one saying I want to have an app, going to have millions of people following me and build this up and make money that way. I was happy training people, in fitness first.
And so what gave you the confidence to do the first seminar or workshop?
Just being asked, honestly. Okay. I had a client over in Perth, just online client, and he was like, hey, look, you train 4 of my coaches and me. You're going to have at least 5 people at this event if you do it. Do you want to do an event at my gym? I said, sure, okay, I'll do that. And that was it. I wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have put myself out there, not out of lack of confidence, but more just like lack of a thought to even do that.
Yeah.
There's actually two sides to it. That was what made me do it. And the funny thing is, out of those 5 people who would have come, none of them came.
No way.
The gym owner came because he was there, but the actual staff client, they didn't come at all.
Oh, it's always the way. That's what opening a gym is. It's like, I'm going to definitely join. No, count on none of those people joining.
No one. But actually, so that was part of it. But actually, I did misspeak then. I went to a few events around this 2013, 2015-ish period, and I was like, these people aren't doing anything that I feel like I couldn't do.
Yep.
They're not teaching stuff that I don't think I could be teaching. They're not presenting it in a way that seems so weird or whatever. And I thought, I can definitely do this, and I can definitely do this better than what they're doing. Not because I know more than them, because honestly I didn't for some of these people, but because maybe the presentation style or the engagement, I was like, yeah, this is really good information, but it's fucking boring. You're not teaching it well. I know that I can make it more engaging for the person, or I just had other ideas, different ideas that I wanted to talk about. And I know that I could do it well. So okay, this is what puts bums on seats, and you're able to do it. I can do it too. And then having that olive branch reached out, I guess, by the clients in Perth, I was like, oh, okay, this is an opportunity. I'll just do it. And then when I did that, seeing people saying, hey, what about Melbourne? What about Sydney? What about, I was like, okay, I guess I just have to do it. Absolute worst case is I lose a weekend.
Yep.
And I'm probably going to be able to break even on costs because it's not that expensive to get a flight and a couple of nights in a hotel. That's all your expenses really are that are going to be different. I was like, I can afford to do this. And they just kept going, which was, that built up your confidence.
How would you define what the workshops were?
Good question. It's very an immersive experience.
Because I sort of, sorry to cut you off, I sort of look back on that, and I first caught a wind of who you are when I think you did some collaboration with Sebastian. I think you did some stuff in Sydney with Sebastian. Anyway, I caught wind of you somewhere around that time, which would have been like 2018 or something like that.
Yeah.
And if I think back to that time and compare it to the times now, you're like the original Kaz, the original like really well thought out approach to doing weights based on an understanding of functional anatomy.
Right.
But I don't know how you'd surmise that to something a little bit cleaner. Like, would you just say it was a lifting workshop?
Yeah, like if I had to tell someone elevator pitch what I do, I teach people how to lift in workshops.
Yeah.
I teach people not just how to lift, but I guess how to think for themselves with lifting.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure, very much what you do in your coaching workshops as well, is you don't want to say, here is our technique cues or whatever that we give, go carbon copy it. But you say, here is why it works the way that we do. Here's why we teach the hinge this way or the squat this way. Here's why we do bar placement or the walkout in this particular ways. You go into the nuts and bolts, and it's based on the principles. So I teach people the principles of how to lift in the gym or how to eat or whatever it is they care about. And the funny thing is I've always had the exact same name of the workshop since day one of muscle mechanics because it sounded cool.
It is cool.
It's a really cool name. I can't remember where I got it from. I probably stole it from somewhere. I know that it's trademarked by somebody else, some massage therapist somewhere. I tried to get trademarked for it years ago. I was like, I can't. But I just did it anyway. Don't sue me, please. But the workshop itself, the substance of it has changed so much in terms of like the what gets taught in it, or the principles are always the same, but the actual example of exercises or techniques used or whatever, based upon what I learned, because I change it because I learn more like, oh, that was completely wrong, or there's a better way to teach things, or I just get bored teaching the same thing the exact same way over and over and over again. I'm like, okay, if I'm doing this same live gig, live event 50 times in the span of, 6 months, I'm going to get burned out and bored. I want to mix it up a little bit. So I'll just find a way to teach the squat differently instead. Or I get put into an environment where I don't have a good gym setup, so I've got to improvise. And that'll create a whole new module in itself. Yeah.
And what was the thing that sort of got you over the line to do your first international workshop?
Very much the same thing as the Perth situation.
Just demand.
Client over there in the UK, I was like, hey, I'm in this awesome gym. I know people here would love to have you here. I'll help you out. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll advertise it and see what happens. And advertise it. It's sold. I was like, oh shit, people actually want me there. Okay. And then I was like, okay, I'm going here. that's a long flight to the UK. I said, I'll try to plan a few more events around then. And then the word of mouth spreads around people. It became a world tour then. I was like 6 months of people just saying, hey, can you come here? Can you come here? I was like, okay, if I'm already making this big flight out, I might as well make it worthwhile and hit as many cities as I can, as many dates as I can. And it just kept going. And it just spun that way. But it was all just, again, just from, I knew that I wanted to do it because I was doing so many domestically that I was like, I didn't know how to start. But a guy said to me, hey, I'm working in this gym. I know there's trainers here who follow you who'd love to come to it. Do it. And I was like, okay, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say you were, starting to put yourself out on social media, are you talking about Instagram back then, Facebook? What was your primary sort of social media driver?
Facebook. So I started posting on Facebook around 2011. And it was walls of text. Like, here is why I don't like intermittent fasting, or here is why I do this with my squat, or here is how I train for strength versus hypertrophy. And it'd be long walls of text. That would do well on Facebook back then. It was weird. Now people don't want to read shit. It was like an extensive, 5-10 minute read on a Facebook wall post, but people cared about it back then. And that was it. And then that just kept going. And then eventually I got into Instagram. I was like, I'll start posting that. I'll post some photos, post some videos, because videos were just starting out then. And then it just kept going. I think, like, fortunately for me, like, I was a relatively early adopter of social media. And I just enjoyed doing that. And again, same thing as like, as anything, when you start getting the positive feedback and affirmation, you just keep doing it more and more. You get addicted to that. And that just drove me to keep doing it at as large a scale as I possibly could, to the point where, like, I have this gym. This gym is literally just for content creation. For me, so I can create reels on Instagram, It's an Instagram studio.
Nice. Sick. I mean, it's relevant. It's what you need, especially with something like the app, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this question because I get asked this question and it pisses me off. It doesn't piss me off, but it's just a weird question to get asked, which is, you finished school, you started personal training out of Fitness First, bounce around, did your Cert 3 and 4. Where did you learn all your stuff from there? Like, if you were to sort of pinpoint some early influences or the sources that you went to for information, what would you say?
Yeah, I've got a really, really, it's underwhelming and unimpressive resume of courses, of either like continuing education courses or anything like that, of mentors. I have had a few just random coaches. I've worked with like bodybuilding coaches and mentors in that field. And some of them have been quite impactful. But more so, it wasn't any specific one person or one course. It was, I did have one coach who was working with me years ago, this random old school guy called Gus, when I was in the commercial gyms helping with bodybuilding. But he really pushed me to always ask why and to be very analytical. What he taught me wasn't necessarily right or wrong or good or bad. Some of it was downright wrong and horrible and bad. But he would really push me to always ask why and to analyze everything I was doing. And that was it. Like, having that as the mentality, which I think I also had innately from a younger age, or at some point when I was growing up and as a kid, I've always wanted to know why and really understand on that completely obsessive level, and just like lay up in bed thinking about it, saying, what if? But having that curiosity and an analytical approach to anything you do, you will succeed in accruing knowledge, if that is your thing, the goal at hand, because you won't read a book just because you want to get the information from the book into your brain. You want to read it because you really want to understand this one question that's been bugging you for 3 weeks straight. Is this really, really important? How do I understand this? I'm going to read as many books as I can to understand the whole length-tension relationship or whatever it may be. Okay, it makes a bit of sense now. That will push you to try to sift through all the stuff that you don't understand. Like, I'm not scientifically trained to read papers or anything like that. I don't interpret them well, which is why I don't talk about that kind of stuff that much. But I know enough to be able to really dig into it to try to understand it, just from having to force myself to learn this stuff, because I cared about trying to answer the question of, why is the mind-muscle crampy sensation connection that you get not a good thing with training? Or is it a good thing? Or is it good or bad? I don't know. Trying to answer that question took me several years of studying, of my own self-study, of trying to analyze that one question and repeat that enough times over, 15 odd years, you're going to accrue some knowledge. in any field. Same as powerlifting. I was, learning a lot from Sebastian. I'd fly up there as many times as I could to learn from him. I went to his courses a dozen times, the exact same course, to just try to understand it better, or just to retain it better, and just to apply it better or differently or whatever, because I was obsessed with it at the time. That was it.
If you were in that phase of learning and growth, let's say, your early 20s especially, now, do you think it would be more difficult to take that mindset of like, I need to critically think about everything? Do you think it would be more difficult now, given the absolute ubiquitousness of nonstop information, and especially very like pendulum swingy information? It's always like, this is completely right. No, wait, it's completely wrong. Do you think it's more difficult now, or do you think it's just the same? We're just in a different landscape.
I think it is easier for the right person. And this is not to toot my own saying I'm the right person, but again, it comes down to the mentality, where if you approach those kind of topic of, hey, are barbell squats good? Are upright rows a good exercise? Or are they causing internal rotation, going to damage your AC joint or whatever? You're going to hear cases, very compelling cases for and against it from very well-learned individuals. And it's going to leave you frustrated if you approach that question just trying to search for the right answer, as opposed to seek an understanding as to why person A says this versus person B saying this. Of course, it's going to be shit for you. But if you approach saying, I want to understand the perspectives, just to try to find a closer approximation of the truth, but not even the perfect answer, then we're in the best age possible, where you have so much information to be able to synthesize through. 10 years ago, if I wanted to understand if upright rows are good versus bad, I had to try to maybe seek out some biomechanics textbooks. Maybe I had to try to I'd maybe go to a cadaver course of some sort where I could see the actual structures in a physical human of, this is what happens when you internally rotate in the actual human body, in the tissue. Or you had to hope that you could speak to the right anatomist or biomechanist or the right physio to hear their perspective. But you don't have the ability to collate that as much. But we do now. You can access that all on YouTube. You can access it all on Instagram in a really entertaining format. Because the cool thing is you can't just access the information, but you have the ability, because the market has demanded it, you can access the information in a really exciting and engaging way. Because in order to break through the noise, you can't post a wall of text anymore. You can't post a 30-minute lecture. You've got to find a way to take that 30-minute lecture and put it into a 30-second TikTok and actually provide substance and good value and something that is quite nuanced, which is possible. People are like, TikTok's bullshit, Reels and just destroyed nuance. No, it's because you suck at communicating that nuance. It's because you suck at breaking it down enough. And yes, you can't take a 10-year course or degree and PhD and break it down to a 1-minute clip, but you can definitely, with the right communication strategy and the right knowledge around it, learn how to pull out what's necessary for this person for this one piece of content and communicate it and create more content and make it exciting. And we have that at our availabilities, which is cool. So I think we're in the best possible environment right now to learn and to flourish, for sure.
I think one really positive thing that comes with the, like you say, the consumer demand for more information and people putting out so much of their information is that now, even though they may not be completely transparent about it, the context in which they're coming from is very apparent. And so like one thing that can be difficult for people when reading information is understanding the context in which this person is talking. And so like someone will say something about shoulder positioning and movement from like an athletic performance perspective, and someone as a powerlifter may read that and be like, okay, well, here's how I would apply that to powerlifting. And then when they apply it to powerlifting, it doesn't make any sense. Right. Even what you were saying before, like the language you were using around like, is a barbell squat good or is a upright row good? The first question should be is like, good at what or good for what or what is good and what is bad? What context are we talking about? Are the knees caving in on squats a bad thing? I always say yes to that question. And people arc up at that because they're like, no, your knees are going to be fine. I'm like, who the fuck's talking about knees? I'm not talking about the health of your knees. I'm talking about, I coach guys that are squatting 455 kilos. Bad to me is less weight than that.
For sure.
Good for me is more weight. And so it's all about context. And I feel like the more prevalent information is from people, the more consistent they are with it, the easier it is to actually hear their message. And then, like you were saying, the principal understanding is important. Then it's up to the consumer to go, okay, I need to understand more about that. Go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
So I love that, because I agree. A lot of people hate the whole growth of social media and this, what they feel as you were saying, the dilution of information, but I think it's great.
For sure. I think, and this may be a little bit myopic of me to say it, but I think a lot of the people who are against this and have only bad things to say about how social media has ruined information or whatever, I think is because they're not good at using social media. And they haven't adapted to the environment. Because maybe they haven't grown up with it. They grew up in a field of doing PhDs and lectures and things like that and having to go through a formal study route. And they sort of look down upon people who go through other avenues to be able to gain information and to be able to communicate it effectively. So I think it's more, you should learn to embrace these things, as this is the world that we live in now. You can either be against it and just get left behind, or you can embrace it and do exceptionally well with it. And you see, like in the evidence-based community, there are so many good people putting out great nuanced information and doing very well with it on social media. And, they find their people. They find their tribes to grow on that.
Do you think, just the generation that you've come from and the way the world has changed while you've been on this development arc has made it quite easy to adapt to what consumers want? In terms of you started on Facebook with walls of text, and then you've recognized the change in the industry happening, or the change in how social media works happening. Have you ever had any troubles with adapting to whatever the next step has been?
No, I don't think I really have. But I'll tell you for sure, if I was 42 or not 32, probably would struggle a lot more.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have grown up, we didn't necessarily grow up with social media in our hands the way kids do now. But I was at the right age where I could understand it for what it was when it was developing, and get on there early enough to be able to start working with it and embracing it and tinkering around and learning with it, where it hasn't necessarily been a struggle when a new platform comes like TikTok or YouTube, I know how to succeed on that. I know how to create content that will communicate effectively and do well and be able to have the right impact on the right people.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever miss how information was, or how you were disseminating information when you started?
Kind of, because it was simpler times. It was just I can just write this out. But now, 10 years ago, I can just write an essay and pump it out. Now I write that exact same essay, and I've got to then do a dozen rewrites and edits and condensing it. And I've got to think about the pacing of it to make sure that it's going to have the maximum watch time, the maximum engagement. There's not going to be a big drop off in the first 30 seconds. I've got to make sure I've got to think about the title. I've got to think about the whole package of the experience for YouTube or for Instagram. I've got to think about the lighting. I've got to think about all these things. I miss it. Days of saying it's the exact same information. I put out the exact same thing I put out 10 years ago, but it's in a very different format. Now that's good and bad, because it's exciting, it's fun, it's rewarding to be able to, because it forces you to learn new skills about video production or audio, or just the psychology of what makes shows or TV shows addictive, what makes them exciting, what makes clickbait, what makes people engage positively or negatively. It's psychology. You're learning about human behavior. You don't learn that from a wall of text of pumping out information as an essay. So it's got its own advantages and disadvantages, but I flip-flop. Every other day I'm telling Katrina, I fucking hate YouTube. I hate doing this. I hate social media. I hate doing this stuff. I've had enough. I'm done. I literally a month ago recorded a video for YouTube saying I'm done. Not as a clickbait, being like, I'm fucking done. Yeah. I've had enough. I don't want to do, because I hate it. Yeah. But then I also love it. It's because it pushes you in that way. And that's the thing that I'll start up till 2 a.m. editing a video, getting it just right, and scrapping the whole thing and starting it again to make it even better. So I can't say I hate it when I do that. I obviously am addicted to it in some way, in a positive way.
Yeah. I suppose it's, for you, when you get those mental battles, because it is such a huge part of what your business relies on, because it is, in some sense, is a one-man show. Like, I know there's a team and everything, but it heavily relies on you being you and you doing your thing.
For sure.
Do you ever feel trapped?
Yeah, for sure. There are definitely times, moments, extended periods of times where I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm chained to have to continue down this trajectory of creating. And that's part of like, where there has been a big pivot point in the last 12 months specifically, and where the next 12 months will go for Gambaru and for myself as a brand is I've always been about collaboration. I've always been about, I want to learn from as many people. I want to credit as many people. I want, your success is my success. Like doing a podcast right now, I want this podcast specifically. I want this to do as well as possible. I want your business to do as well as possible. I'm not going to see direct gain from you opening 10 more gyms, but I will indirectly. And I will still just from a personal satisfaction, like, oh, cool, it's cool seeing you doing really well. That's awesome. But I've always been of that mindset of like, I know that I can't do things like even being like a one-man show in inverted commas. I'm still not a one-man show, and it's all about collaboration. So part of it, of me feeling trapped at times, I've realized the way forwards now is embracing even more of that collaboration and bringing as many people as I can and helping them shine through Gambaru and helping put them on a pedestal and not just me, and helping to grow their personal brands and their own businesses or whatever by using Gambaru as a vehicle. And that's part of like where there's a lot of guest collaborators coming into the Gambaru experience, providing their own programs, their own experiences that will be coming out through the next 12 months or so, because I know that I can't, like, if somebody asks me, hey, I want to do powerlifting program, like, I can write something for you. I know the technical details in writing a program that's probably going to get you 80% of the way there. And on paper, it might look very close to something that you might program as well, because it's theoretical there. But I know that it's never going to be as good coming from me as it would be from you. Never, no matter what, because I don't have that understanding, because I haven't squatted 400 kilos. I haven't worked with that many bodies across over a decade in powerlifting specifically. So if somebody's asking for a powerlifting program, why should I write it? I would rather somebody else do it. I'd rather use my platform to help them leverage off my people and my platform and grow them even more. Because again, your success or their success is my success. I don't have an ego in that. I'd rather be able to do what I do really well, which is create a big, all-encompassing brand that can reach a lot of people by having really good communication strategies, outreach strategies, and experience within the app experience, whatever. I can really double down on those things. And things I can't do, like write a powerlifting program or a running program or a plyometric program, I would rather get other people doing that because I'll butcher it. I'll be horrible at that. You don't want that from me. You don't want my squat program for powerlifting. You don't want that. It's going to break everything in your body as much as I can know it theoretically.
So it sounds like you're finding a reinvigoration, a new driving force through the whole concept of just serving others. Like you've obviously been serving for a long time because you've worked with so many people and built such a huge following. But it's interesting how the concept of serving others, like think of your journey as a personal trainer, has shifted from the individual right in front of you. Like it has to change if you're going to scale. For sure. Because how do you serve 12,000 people? Like you can't look after 12,000 people. And so it's cool to see how that's clearly been something that you deal with in your head, is like, how do I continue to serve, and how it's changing as your growth has happened and how your model has shifted. And it's awesome. Love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it is like, it's by necessity, because again, I can't service 12,000, 20,000. What brought me from 1,000 to 12,000 won't get me to 100,000. Those same systems won't work. But another part is, now that I have this many people, I have this following, I've got something I can take to somebody and say, hey, look, I've got this many people. I've got this audience. I have this thing. I have this app. I have this thing that, I have this reputation that I didn't have 5 years ago. They didn't have 10 years ago. So even if I had the same vision back then, I didn't have anything to offer. But now I do, which is why like this is where the pivot point in the journey is now, like, oh, now that I've got the opportunity to do these things, now of course it makes sense. Even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do the same collaborations that I can do now, because people wouldn't listen to me. I wouldn't have as much social proof from a reputation of a large scale following and millions of views and millions of hours worth of good content being put out to create that reputation and brand. It's had to come through time.
Do you have any controls in place, either in your own head or whatever, when it comes to, okay, you want to collaborate with more and more people, obviously you sit in a certain position in the industry. Anyone who's behind in that position, like you were saying before, you may not see a direct benefit off of my business growing, but there probably is a direct benefit with me talking to you right now.
Absolutely.
And having a relationship with you. How do you have any controls in place that sort of put up red flags with you, like, oh, I know this person is just trying to leverage off me?
Oh, for sure. If someone's a dick, and you can tell pretty quickly when someone's not authentic or they're using you within the first 5 minutes, maybe 5 seconds of an interaction. You can tell if they actually have a bigger picture in mind as opposed to their own back pocket, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And then I just want to deal with them. I'm like, yeah, cool, you're out. It's taken that filter has taken me time to develop as well.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
There's been many periods where, working with some people where I've come to realize, oh wow, it's a very transactional relationship. Mm. You only like me because of what I can potentially bring to you. And if I don't play ball all the time with giving you the reshares or the posts or the traction or whatever, then you don't care at all. And it's all just about the bottom line. And it's not about maybe the bigger impact on what you could have on the communities of people in fitness or whatever it may be. And I'm like, okay, then I'll walk away from that. And yeah, it wasn't very apparent to me at first, but now I've learned to do that because you've been burned that many times. Like, yeah, okay, this is what a dick looks like.
Mm. Yeah. And I'm glad you said that because they do make themselves known. Like for me, if this SD had popped out, if I'd never hit record, if that had never hit record, like that's what I came here for. I came here for to chat to you and find out your story.
Yeah.
If it never got out to the world, if you don't reshare it, it doesn't mean anything to me. Oh, I mean, it means something to me, but like I'm here to learn from you. I'm here to chat to you, to meet you. I've heard nothing but great things about you. I've listened to your podcast. I've followed your stuff. Like this is what I get out of it. And I can take this experience and I can apply it to me. I can apply it to my business. I can hear you talk about your business. I can hear you talk about like that idea of serving others. Like all of that stuff is inspirational for me to go back and like, how are the top dogs in this industry doing it? How can I do my thing better so that people under zero get a better experience? That's all I care about. And the more people that are doing that, we're lucky to be surrounded by people like that, like Will and Mickey, what they're doing with Nexus, like the Strength Culture boys, this is a really cool industry. Lots of people talk shit on how this industry is and how it acts, but we're surrounded by really great people. Yeah,
it just depends on the perspective you take. Like if you see people as your competitors, then like if you see Will and Mickey at Nexus as your competitors, it's going to be a shit experience. But if you see it as, there's more than enough. There's a pie that's big enough for everybody all the time, and we can all help each other. It's always going to be a positive experience.
Yeah,
and there's no losers in this.
Yeah, I use the pie analogy all the time. A smaller slice of a bigger pie is way better than a little pie to yourself.
Absolutely.
Sweet. Well, man, we've been going for almost an hour. I want to ask you, just to finish things off, Gambaru, where did that name come from? How did you come up with it? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, there was a female bodybuilder, friend of mine that I used to follow up in Sydney. It's called Jocelyn. And she had her Instagram name was Ganbaru. This is 10 years ago or so. I was like, I don't know what this word means. I thought it was just a random word. So that was it. Just some random person I just knew through the bodybuilding industry had that as a screen name. So I Googled and I was like, that's a really cool word. It's got a really nice meaning and sentiment behind it. It's a very, it just rolls off the tongue really nicely. Rhymes with kangaroo if you say it like that. Kangaroo, Gambaru. So it fits, and that was it. Because it's Japanese. I'm not Japanese, but I like Japanese culture. And just the whole mentality behind this idea of perseverance, which the Japanese do take to an extreme. Stuff that, we have a word called perseverance. We have a word for resilience, but it's not the same as Gambaru. The spirit they embody with that, it's a whole different thing. Like you've been to Japan, you know that culture quite well. It's a different, something that we really can't fathom and we can't replicate as Westerners, So I love that.
So that's what the word means, perseverance.
Yeah, if you were to give it a translation, it'd be perseverance, but even that doesn't really encapsulate what it the level of the degree of perseverance of what they go through and how they use it as a word of encouragement and as a word of showing character and spirit.
Well, hang on a second. Did you just steal this off this woman, or did,
for sure.
Did she change it?
Oh, she changed it. Yeah. She changed it. Yeah.
Did you ask her first?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's not a trademark.
Yeah,
It wasn't her brand. She just liked the word, so she put it as her Instagram handle. I was like, oh, it's a cool word.
Yeah.
That was it.
I love seeing the amount of like strength coaches. Like, there's Australian strength coach, and then everyone else is like, oh fuck, he's doing well. It's like Brisbane strength coach or like fucking Mildura strength coach or something like that.
But I think that's the secret sauce. It's all in it's having a catchy brand name is what's going to bring people in. It's like, it's not it. It's
all on the Instagram name. What's your favorite milestone that you've hit over the time that you've been like, from a PT, starting out all the way to now? Is there a milestone that stands out the most, whether it's like you got your 10th client, you got your 1,000th follower, or your 100,000th follower, or your 1,000th, fuck, that's a hard word to say, the number 1,000 app subscriber? Is there a milestone to you that really stands out?
No numbers like that, but there has definitely been things where it's like traveling in general, being able to, like, growing up, I never traveled ever because I never want to take any time off work. Like, I would work through Christmas, I'd work on Christmas Day at the gym. So when I had the opportunity to say, I can actually travel for work and have people fly across, like take several hours out of their life or days to fly and come see me in different parts of the world in the most remote places. And I'm like, this is obscure. It's really cool. Have those shared experiences. And then that was a really cool thing, because something that the fitness industry is big, but you don't really know until you really get out there and realize all these people are here connected by the exact same thing. They don't speak the same language, or they talk differently, or they have different backgrounds, but they all share this unified experience of health and fitness and training in general. That was really cool. Big milestone was just doing that, is international touring. Not one specific date, but the whole concept of it.
Yeah.
Probably the other one was just having this gym. Yeah. Like being at a point where I say, not that I can afford this gym, but it was actually a necessity. Uh-huh. That was a cool milestone. Actually, it costs me more money to not have a gym than it does to have a gym.
Yeah.
In terms of not necessarily profit margin, but the ability to do what I want to do, which is reach people and communicate positively and give them good experiences, even on a 30-second Instagram post. Mm-hmm. I can do it in a fitness first or in a commercial gym and it'll do pretty well, but I can do it here and I'll be doing even better. I'd rather do it here just for that. And being able to do that is cool.
Yeah, fuck yeah. What's your favorite place you've been to for work?
Probably Italy, Rome.
Nice.
Yeah, that was cool. It's really good people. Most of them in the seminar didn't speak English, so that was fun.
Do you have a translator?
I had a guy that was helping to translate, which was just it didn't stick with that we'd need him. So he wasn't really ready for it. I was like, oh shit, I guess I need you to help translate some of this stuff. A lot of it was just more, we would just pantomime and try to communicate things through just movement as opposed to having to use words. Otherwise, the seminar would take twice as long because you got to translate everything twice. But yeah, that was a lot of fun being out there.
Yeah, I had the same experience in PNG, except the translator couldn't really speak English anyway. So it was a lot of just like, miming and pointing and but it worked. It was fun.
For sure.
Fun ads. Sure. All right, man, we're going to cut it there. Thank you so much for all of your time. I'd say the whole, like, what's your Instagram? Everyone knows you. They know you more than us anyway. So that part's easy. Thanks so much. And
thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the ZeroW Podcast. If you want more information, head to our Instagram, @zero_weakness. Hit the link in the bio for all of our services and any information on upcoming workshops and events. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review so we can have a broader reach and answer more people's questions. Thank you once more.